Was properly notified and posted?
Yes, it was, Madam Chair.
All right, so it looks like we have a 9-point agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
All right, motion by Brewer, second by Glassbrenner. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Item number 4, minutes from the January 27th, 2021 meeting. In reading those over, it looks like in the attendance section, I don't believe that Mr. Southwick or Mr. Vlasic were present at that meeting. So Mr. Langrick suggested that we correct that before approving the minutes. So I would make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction of striking Mr. Vlasic and Mr. Southwick from being present at that meeting. Do I have a second?
This is Dave. I'll second.
Any further discussion on the minutes from the January 27th meeting?
That was my error, Madam Chair. I copy, cut, and pasted from a previous meeting and failed to thoroughly kind of examine who was in our attendance list. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. No problem. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Item number 5, current I think Mr. Langwick may want to take 5, 6, 7 altogether, but I will turn it over to Mr. Langwick at this point.
Madam Chair, looking to kind of reconvene and leave, kind of pick up where we left the conversation from our last meeting on the 27th. In your folder tonight prepared for you is there's an additional data that was requested that kind of shows the allocation of hours for the position. Where we left off in the conversation with the committee on the 27th is we didn't quite feel comfortable in blessing off in the whole plan with concerns on adding another position, kind of being the point of contention and discussion and where we adjourned. Tonight, looking to see if there is traction, though, to potentially piecemeal on some of the bits and portions of the plan if we cannot accept all of it. But as was requested by, I believe, Supervisor Glassbrenner, we do have some information here to share, as was provided through our staff and showing allocations for their hours spent, their position descriptions. If you can bear with me for just a minute here, and I will try to pull those. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see this on your screen. I'm sharing via tablet, so I can take minutes on my other device here. So this was done here by Derek, our previous accounting supervisor. He, of course, went through and, as requested, approximated how many hours annually that he thinks gets attributed or that he recalls being attributed to the different functions of the position descriptions. And then also we kind of have on there which duties essentially would be appropriate to transfer over to a county clerk position as its own existing position. And then the same was done for accounts payable specialists. Thank you to Amy. And these were the functions we had talked about previously being as appropriate to transfer over to the deputy. So you see a displacement on what those hours potentially would look like, again, on an annual estimate. And Tammy Hendrickson completed one for the payroll benefits specialist position. And again, estimating how many hours are allocated to each function in a given year, and then how many potentially can be transferred to a deputy. That being said, with some of the things obviously transferred is with all the position descriptions is kind of seeing those bits and pieces with election. Some of the transferability of it might not be quite appropriate to think that if we have 160 hours from one position into being transferred over, elections related, obviously in that short time frame of window, we can't fit all the hours from 3 people into one person and still accomplish elections during a time frame to get the things processed. So some of the things might have to be kind of caveated with the idea that, as we talked about, sometimes these functions are all going on at the same time, and it on all one position plate, if that's spoken correctly. And then part of it tonight, we'll look to see if we can kind of regroup, and as we had talked about, now the pieces, each piece of the plan, and then kind of just if there's any tweaks that we need for each section, or if we're comfortable and blessing off on each kind of section, again, piecemeal to take to the county board for adoption. Madam Chair.
All right. So in talking with Clint over this last week after the last meeting, there was a couple things from this document that we felt were really important to try to get through to finance for tomorrow's meeting. So in my mind, I think there's some things that we were all in agreement with, and we had talked through those items, and we, should be able to go ahead with approving those. And I think, as he stated, the one sticking point was how to go about making a decision on this final position. So with those thoughts in mind, I guess I would like to hear from the committee as to if you would like to, if you're comfortable with passing parts of that document, or if you'd like to just pass the whole document. So if anyone would like to comment on which approach we'd like to take, I would be open to suggestions at this point.
This is Bob. I don't see how we could pass the entire document at this point, being we're still caught on the question of how the positions are going to get broken up, or filled or managed. And I think the question also comes up that the county clerk does have the ability to elect or to appoint a deputy, and is that then a new position, and how do we migrate that? I think there's too many questions to say we can solve this and give it for a full blessing by tomorrow. I think that's just a little, unless there's a magic answer tonight and somebody's willing to split a job or something like that. Maybe that's a solution, but I haven't heard any of that yet to know.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. But I just wanted to know if there was any other strong feelings about trying to work out that other position with the information we have at hand. I do think that we have not covered all the possible scenarios of how we could figure out this final position. I think there's many options that we've mentioned, as in sharing a position with another office like Register of Deeds or Treasurer or something like that, but we haven't even spoken with those departments yet. So I guess unless someone is opposed to this, what I would like to do then is start with this transition document. And if you could go up to the top of that document, I think that the intention statement, I think it would be really useful for us to pass this. I mean, overall, what we're looking to, I think what Mr. Langrid's intention and what I think our intention is that we would like to have a well-written document that lays out all of these different pieces with direct language, asking everyone to work together to get this accomplished, is really what sort of I feel this is. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So with that being said, that first yellow box, well, I guess I should back up. One of the things, so there's that yellow box, and then the next section is the office space, which I think is a really good piece of the plan that needs to be laid out in well-written terms, because we want to make sure that is a shared resource of office space, so that the transition and the communication between the clerk's office and the administrator's office can be accomplished well. So basically what I think, and please feel free to add in any of your thoughts, I think that it would be good to pass this entire plan with the exception of removing the section that has to do with the third account specialist, or accounts payable specialist position. So essentially, we would pass the document as it is without that section. Anyone's thoughts? Does anyone have any concerns about other sections of this document that you would not want?
What pages would that be removing if we are?
So we would, right, we would remove 5 and 6. Well, no, actually just page 5, because page 6 has to do with him hiring the, oh no, it has a deputy clerk in there too. So yeah, it would be removing pages 5 and 6. Well, that's a good, yeah, okay, so as I'm reading this, I'm sorry, but as I'm reading this, we may have to remove all of the job duty ones because we haven't determined for sure what duties are moving where.
Yeah, right.
So it would be through,
Madam Chair, I mean, if it's as easy as taking out all language relating to modifying or transferring the current accounts payable specialist.
yes. Yeah, because we have already transitioned the accounting supervisor and the payroll and benefits specialist position. So any language referring to them can accurately be. Go ahead, Ingrid.
Sorry, we had not actually made a resolution for the ordinance 2026, right? We waited until we decided what we were doing with this document. I know we had discussed it.
No, actually, that passed out of committee last
Did we?
time.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we took that out separately or not. Okay. So
Yeah,
then,
that's the only resolution, that's the only motion we passed out of committee at the last meeting.
okay.
So, well, okay, I'm sorry, I'm being disorganized here. So for sure, the first page, we would like to, we want to make sure we pass all the language that has to do with the intention of the board. Instructing people to work together, the county administrator to work with the clerk and vice versa. Instructing employees to work together to help with this transition. I think all of that language is very important. So pages 1 and 2.
Madam Chair, I'm going to go back into share screen again to pull it up. But
Oh.
just as a heads up, I'm sharing from my tablet. So for me to make a comment, it'll take a couple seconds for me to change screens.
Okay. Right. Yeah, so pages 1 through 4 are where we are laying out the directives and cooperation of employees, as well as the office space, that's a shared office space between the clerk and the county administrator. So that's pages 1 through 4. So we could do one of two things. We can pass each of these yellow highlighted areas. There's one on page 1 and there's one on page 4. We could pass them individually, or we could pass the plan with removing anything to do with the accounts payable specialist position that we need to make decisions on. So I'm open to someone making a motion as to what they would like to do.
Just reading through a couple of things here quick. Give me one moment.
Yeah, feel free to everyone. I mean, if we want to just take a minute to kind of look at this, I'm okay
Yes.
with that too.
I feel like the bulk of this document winds up being in that moving of the positions, or basically in that position part. So, I mean, I guess I don't really care either way. I don't know if it makes more sense to just make 2 separate motions and then, or if he wants to really remove, Clint, I don't know if you want to remove all of that language. It just seems like the bulk of it is tied up in the part that we're probably not going to be able to pass tonight.
Yeah, the only other piece that I think I would like included is the last page on page 14, where it says oversight and communication. I just think that that's a really well-rounded statement in just, how who people should talk to if there's issues, and which committee has oversight. Are you on page 14 or is that the first page again? Well, that's 12. Okay. Yeah, oh,
12 through 14 actually all have some good information on them.
yeah. So I think it's important that we include all of those along with those upper pages, with a page, through page 5, I think it was, that had the 2 other yellow boxes.
So basically we're removing pages 6 through 11. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense at this point.
I don't know how the other committee members feel, but I would be fine making a motion to, I guess, how would we state that? To pass this document with the removal of pages 6 through 11, or do we need to state that differently, Clint?
I would say that we need to say that we would pass, the motion would be that we would pass with the included actions, because we want to make sure that the resolution includes the language that we're adopting, the intentions of the board, and the sharing of space, and then the directives of the directives to, I don't know if we want to call them directives, or the oversight and communication sections.
Yes, I would suggest that a document be passed that is just what you want passed, not a document that's page 1 through 4, and all of a sudden then you don't have 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you pass document pages 12 through 14. So your one document would be page 1 through 7, knowing that we're going to be coming back with an additions to this document. Those sections aren't going to change. But if you present a document with pages missing,
Right. I'm assuming that Clint would create a new document to present.
That's why I make sure. All right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of taking it as what your guidance is and the best way you can help define that of what you would like taken out of that. We'll try to rework it the best we can for finance and personnel tomorrow at 1. And from then it's a recommendation to that committee. They may chew on it or take it a full swallow of what you're recommending to them. And then, of course, their job is then to make proposed resolution to the county board.
Madam Chair, will we be having any discussion tonight on the portions of this that we are not passing at this time?
We can have some discussion, but the reason that I wanted to have the meeting today was I felt like it was important to get some of the cooperation and elements out to finance so it can get before county board in February. I think that the discussion that needs to happen for that third position, we have not even begun to research, other areas of the county that have financial positions that could potentially be of help in this area. We have not talked to, if there was going to be any kind of sharing of positions, we haven't talked to any of those parties, had them come before this committee. So my thought was we do this tonight. We can have some preliminary discussions. People can throw out some ideas. And then for the next meeting, that would give us time then to get those pieces in place to present at the next meeting.
When is the next meeting?
We haven't said it yet.
Okay,
that's one of the things we'll do tonight.
Very good. I'm liking this so far, that removing that section, because like you said, that there's a lot of discussion, a lot of unknowns to be pounded through. One of my questions on page 4 of the plan, the transition plan directives, and the timing that you have on there, moving the AS400, making space available. Do we have, or should we have the ability to know what that's going to cost? Is there going to be a charge in that? We're saying we want it done, but are we actually going to be able to fund that? Are we funding that? Is that something finance is going to want to know about?
Madam Chair, can I speak to that?
Yes, please do.
We don't anticipate there actually being a cost to that. We already have the fiber across the street, and it would go into the server locations that are across the street. We at County Board approved Veeam backup software last County Board, and we have started that purchase. Actually, I got the license through today. So our next step is to do that. There may be some programming costs, but those would be covered into the budget of the MIS department under our consulting line.
Fabulous. Excellent. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Barb. So one other thing that I wanted to mention that we might, or you can tell me if you want to consider this as being something we should add to this document. So Amy Lewis is currently in the position of the accounts payable specialist. Her job description includes all of the data, the entry that she described at the last meeting. If we do nothing with her position today, my understanding is that she would continue to do her job as written in her job description. She would continue to be under the supervision of the county clerk, but she would still be able to continue to do her financial responsibilities because her job description hasn't changed. So I don't know if we just want to make that statement in here that until such time as as this committee or the board decides to change her position, that she will continue to enter checks and write checks and do all of the things that she described last time. She will be under the supervision of the clerk, but obviously the county administrator has authority to speak with her and communicate with her. He just is not at this point her direct supervisor. So I don't know if we want to just make that language clear so that Amy and Mr. Vlasic and everyone is clear as to what her position currently is, that we are not basically just stating that we are not changing anything with her position. And because I want to make sure that she continues to be able to do her job with as far as the financial aspects, and that she can be communicating with Tammy and whoever in the accounting supervisor position that she needs to as she does her normal daily duties. Is that some?
I think that's
feel we
incredibly
should
important
consider-
that you state that. I think it's very important that you state that and explain that clearly like that, both for Amy and for the transition.
Marty and Dave, do you guys have thoughts on that particular part?
I think Supervisor Frank is right.
Madam
We need to
Chair?
be very clear about that.
Okay, that's what I thought as well. So I guess we would have to. So I think Ingrid, we should maybe go back to the beginning and restate what we think we're asking Clint to present to finance. If I summarize what I think you were thinking, so we would pass this document.
Clint, you have a question?
Hold on, Clint has something.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I've got two action motion languages put down here. Would you like me to read them to you, Madam Chair?
That'd be great. That would be great. Go ahead.
Okay, so first one would be, we're looking for a motion to recommend the transition plan and directives with removal of sections regarding functions found in pages 8 through 11. The county administrator will rework the plan to reflect these changes. Second motion would be motion that there is no, or looking to affirm that there's no current changes to the accounts payable position, with expectations that all functions stay in place and that the position remains a direct report to the county clerk.
Okay, well, we have a motion, but we didn't get a second on the first motion.
No, there's no motion been made on either one of these things. These are just the languages that I kind of crafted based on discussion, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, Ingrid had started with one, so.
Yeah, that's all right. I liked
Sorry.
that language, unless you guys had any comments on that, but I'll put those out as a motion.
And let's pass them as two separate motions.
Okay, so the first one with the documents, I'm not going to restate all of that, but I'm going to present that as a motion.
All right, so motion by Supervisor Glassbender. Do I have a second?
And Supervisor Frank, I will second that.
All right, is there any further discussion on passing this document with the accounts payable specialist section removed onto finance?
Being we are in the discussion phase, I do see that both Amy and Tammy are on, and I would offer to them an opportunity to express if what we're talking about here, their input, their ideas. Certainly not saying they need to. Just I see they're on. If they wanted to voice something, I'd be interested in that.
Absolutely. If you guys have anything you would like to ask us or anything you would like to add, we are more than willing to listen to what you guys have to say.
Or whoever else too, and not just those. I saw those two names in particular. So.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that they would like to just
Listen.
Continue to listen to us.
That's fine. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. All right. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion passes. And now we have that second one. You want to reread that one, Clint, just to?
Madam Chair, motion to affirm there is no current changes in the accounts payable position with expectations that all functions stay in place and that the position remains a direct report to the county clerk. Madam Chair.
All right. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think that motion should somehow indicate that this will be reviewed down the road. I don't know how we want to say that.
I mean, we could say something like until such time as the committee or the board has made a determination as to that position.
Is currently under
Yeah.
review.
As current, yeah, or yeah, something to that effect.
Right.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think that it'll be very important when we present these to both Personnel and Finance and to the full board, assuming it makes it through Personnel and Finance, that we very clearly explain, the context of these. That these are steps in the direction. These are not the final answers. There will be more changes, but these are the steps we can accomplish at this point.
Right. Excellent point. Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Melissa. It's Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
Trying to figure out how this works is not my forte.
Okay.
It took a while to get unmuted.
Yes. Yeah, we've been trying.
Yeah.
Listening to all the stuff going back and forth, could we suggest that you guys come into our office and just kind of visualize what we do? Kind of ask some questions of what we do so that way you guys have a better understanding of how the office works and the duties. Because it's kind of hard from afar to see what it is that we do and try to visualize it in just a meeting. If you've never seen what's all done, how it's all done, how the process works, makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah, I agree that it is usually easier to. I'm not sure. I mean, are you thinking that in an hour we could get a feel for how your day works all the time?
Well, we could, at least show you, this is what the system looks like. We can just, just give you some more visuals. You guys can ask some more questions. Some people have never been in our office. So they don't even know the layout. So, just trying to figure out, where Clint's going to move to and how that's all going to work. There's a lot of different little things that it might spark some more ideas on how you guys want to put together this transition.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's something we can try to figure out.
Great
in the
idea.
future. Yeah, in the near future.
Great idea.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Was there any other comments you guys wanted to express?
It's just we're just kind of just sitting back, seeing how this is all going to work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt and ask. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do have one question though,
Yes.
because I wrote down you guys wanted to remove 6 through 11, pages 6 through 11, and then Clinton said 8 through 11. So did I miswrite or did I mishear?
I'm tracking 6 through 11 on my notes here, but I do mumble. I apologize if I misspoke
Okay,
as
I
well.
just wanted to make sure.
Sure.
I actually think it's going to include page 5 because that's where we start to get into positions moving. It has the diagram. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
Well, Clint, you can just remove those sections that talk about the deputy clerk and leave the ones in there that talk about the other two positions, correct?
I understand your intent is to stay away from the heavier language on the functions moving and things that impact the accounts payable specialist at this time, Madam Chair.
Right, because I would like that subtask of posting the position, interviewing for the position, and starting position. That language should definitely still be in there. That's on page 6.
Because that's the open position right now, correct?
It is, and we definitely want that
Get
in our
that started.
timeline. We want that done. Yeah. Okay. Now I lost track of where we are. Did we have did we have a motion on the clarity of did you add any language to what to include what Marty had said?
My proposed second action language here for tonight would be to affirm there is no current changes to the accounts payable position with expectations that all functions stay in place and that the position remains as a direct report to the county clerk, and the committee intends to further review.
There we go.
Works.
That should go ahead, Bob. Were you going to say something?
No, I said that works. That works. Nice.
Yeah.
It sounds good to me.
All right. So could someone make that motion officially?
We had a motion in a second because Bob got us to discussion after that.
Oh, we did. Okay. Sorry.
Right.
Totally lost track. Do you have that written down, Clint? The motion in the second?
I don't. I have.
I don't think we
Fred-
did.
That was the first one.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that was for the first one.
Okay. That's what I thought too, but so can someone make that motion? I'll make that motion.
I will second that motion.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Okay. So at this point, I guess I'll just throw out there the different thoughts that I've had about how we could potentially handle this accounts payable specialist position. I do see how it would make sense for that position to completely transfer into the county administrator's office. And actually, while Tammy and Amy are on, this is a question I have though. Do you feel that you would have any capacity to help Clint with administrative duties, like getting ready for meetings and potentially, answering phone calls and items like that? I would definitely I wonder about the capacity for their ability to help him with duties other than financial stuff. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Amy, this is Tammy. Amy can't unmute.
I don't.
If
Can she hit the chat box?
Barb, if you're still on, can you try to unmute her?
They took away that ability on here. She can only unmute herself. Is she on the phone?
She's
I
on.
think so.
I'm
Let me
sorry, I
look.
didn't catch that.
Yeah, she's on the phone.
Is she doing the *6? She's not muted. If that's her on the phone, she's not muted.
I don't know. She looks like she's on an iPad from what I can see. All right. Well, maybe that's a question that we could get answers to for the next meeting. But anyway, back to my thought was, but in looking at these percentages, so if you look at the hours that add up to what's transferred to the deputy, it adds up to about 658 hours. So again, it doesn't seem like the clerk's office necessarily needs a full-time deputy. So then the question becomes, do we try to hire someone who's just 50%? Do you split the position with another office like Register of Deeds or Treasurer or something like that? The other thought I had was, as far as a financial position, we do have accounting people in other departments within the county, which I have no idea what their workloads are like. And, we would need to obviously bring in not only those people in those positions, but the department heads from those departments as well. So I guess what I would like to hear today from the committee is, as I'm trying to organize these meetings and decide who to bring in and who we should be talking to, I would love to hear your thoughts on, what you think might be potential solutions and who you would like to hear from in order to help us make an informed decision. Bob, are you talking? You're muted.
Sorry, there we go. Yes, I was actually, and it was a great idea, but I forgot it now. So one of my topics is the clerk can appoint a deputy clerk. Is that then a new position? Do we have any job positions for that? Any language for that? And how does that? I guess that's the first question. I think we need to know what that is, because before we try to transition other people or see if we can share from another office or something, if the clerk does not want that person as a deputy clerk, it's all mute.
Right.
So I think that's going to be my first challenge.
So I can give you what little information I know. So I have spoken with Andy Phillips of the Wisconsin Counties Association lawyers. He indicated to me, and I'll try to explain this, I can't explain it nearly as well as he can, but what he explained to me was that the clerk can appoint whoever they want as deputy.
Right.
The county provides a position. The designation of the deputy title is separate from the position description. Right. So in theory, we can appoint a position into a job description and position for the clerk. And if the clerk were to decide he didn't want that person as deputy, it's an uncomfortable and not fun situation. Right. And it's obviously happened in other counties. But at the end of the day, we provide him with a position. And if he decides not to deputize that person, then that's his choice not to deputize them. But we have done our part in allocating him a position. Do I think that would be a great situation? No. Do I think that we want to make sure we, can find something that will be agreeable to our clerk and, fair to our clerk? Yes. So, what it came down to, he said, is that in general, there's usually cooperation between the elected official and the county in determining who's going to be, or what the clerk has the right to appoint that person, but the county has the authority to pay that position. So we need to come to an amicable solution to this. And so I'm hoping that our clerk will want to have conversations with us sometime soon to try to figure out how we can work this out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is the county has the position and the clerk can choose to appoint that position or not appoint that position, but cannot go out and pick someone off the street and say, I want you to be the deputy, even though there's that another position is filled?
So my understanding is that technically a clerk could appoint anyone they want, and they would not necessarily be an employee of the county. However, there's all sorts of liability and other issues that make that just not a sustainable solution.
Right.
I think the language that was kind of used is, yes, they can appoint who they would like, but then the county would not necessarily be obligated to have that person on payroll to pay them. And then, like Chuck had mentioned too, the other different parts of liabilities if they're acting in the capacity of a deputy, but not formally an employee of the county, that would lead to complications.
So
Love
yeah,
the gray areas of the statute.
right. And so, I mean, you know, when we start talking about sharing deputies between the Register of Deeds and the clerk's office, like, you know, that was one of the reasons why I wanted Mr. Romanesco to talk about that, because he has experience in his county with sharing of deputy positions. And like he said, you know, if both parties are willing, it can be very successful. But if both parties would not be willing, then, you know, it's not going to be a great situation, and most definitely not a great situation for the employee. So I think we need to start having some really, really good conversations with, if this is an idea we want to pursue, which if you start looking at the job duties, it feels like it's something we need to pursue. Then we're going to need to start bringing all the parties to the table to have some open discussions about how we can make it work for everybody.
Correct.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Burr.
Something we have to keep in mind as we go through this process. I'm not, and I cannot speak for Victor Vlasic, but I don't think he perhaps does not intend to be clerk for many years in the future, all right? And what I'm saying is the person that is deputized as the county clerk could likely become the county clerk, and that's not automatic, I realize, but historically, how Mr. Vlasic got his was he was the deputy clerk in the office of the county clerk. The county clerk retired. The county board appointed Mr. Vlasic as the county clerk, acting county clerk, however they did it back then. And then he ran for election at the next, he ran for the office and has been reelected for many, many, many years. And my understanding is that before the current financial officer resigned and went over to the city employment, that would probably have been the scenario that would have been followed. So we have to keep that in mind, that the clerking may be far more significant than we realize.
Are you saying from a perspective of as a full-time position, or just that whoever holds that position has the potential to move into the clerk?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Whoever holds that position,
right,
has the
yeah. Well, I mean, we have
moving in.
We obviously have no way of knowing when and if that would happen. So I don't know that. Yeah. One thing I will say, that just to remind you that, so, you know, Todd Romanesco did say that, you know, they've had they had a new clerk come in and with an existing deputy in that position, and the county's stance was, this is the person we have in that position. So you either take that person or you don't have a deputy, was kind of the scenario. So it would be a similar type of situation. where we're offering a person and a position, you know, that's in a position, and the clerk can then choose. Now, also mind you, our corporation counsel disagrees with all of this. He thinks we are obligated to give him his own position that he fills as he sees fit. Can't talk. And I've had several conversations with the Wisconsin Counties Association trying to understand if that's true, then how is this working in all these other counties? And he keeps telling me that is not the usual interpretation of how that works. So there's that.
Madam Chair, I had a
Yeah.
couple of thoughts when I was looking through this, which, first of all, I just want to say that I really appreciate each of these individuals breaking this down. That's very helpful, and I'm sure that took some of their time to do that. So I wanted to say I appreciate that. But one thing I was thinking about as I was looking at these estimations is that right now they're estimations under the operating form of government, or the form of government with the county clerk. And so if our goal is with the county administrator form of government to improve some efficiencies, to look at various things financially to improve efficiencies, it's a little difficult to know how that's going to look once we have the transition fully done and things are, I think there's going to be some changes. I think that's just natural when we're talking about this kind of transition. The other thing is that when we're looking at all of the things that are going to be transitioning from what is currently under the county clerk to the county administrator, it's difficult, especially without Mr. Vlasic's input, to understand then how many hours, how many hours each of his duties will require, and if he will have time to, for example, be doing some of these duties that are currently listed as deputy clerk position duties. I'm sorry. Especially as right now we don't have anyone filling this position, and I know that he's been doing a lot of the things that are in the accounting supervisor, which we're talking about that all transitioning to county administrator. So I guess what I'm saying is we don't have a full picture without those pieces of information as far as what the breakdown of hours will actually be. How much time would we need for a deputy clerk with what the county clerk's responsibilities will be after this transition happens, if that makes sense.
Right. So were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was. I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just processing everything she just said. So go ahead.
What's preventing us at this point from putting out the request for the position of the accounting supervisor, that's the vacant one? What's stopping us from getting that filled?
I believe that's already out and advertised. It's
Okay,
being
good.
advertised now.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Langrick, do you know has the clerk indicated to you whether he will continue to do the accounting supervisor duties?
Today in conversation with Kirk Vlasic, he expressed he's willing to help kind of cover down on the accounting supervisor positions. He was busy at the station today, keen on the AS400 system. So I'm very appreciative to those efforts and hoping that he'll be able to, as we're looking to do the transition, he's able and willing to stay on to help with the training, with the supervising and day-to-day guidance on how to manage the system until we have legs under us with a new person.
Okay, that's good. That's really helpful. All right, so I guess Supervisor Glassbrenner, did you have are there particular people that you think would be really helpful to speak to in order to help us figure out?
Well, honestly, the best person would obviously be Clerk Vlasic himself, because I think we kind of need a breakdown of once these things transition, what are your duties and how many hours, kind of like what we're looking at here, an estimation.
So you're wanting that in order to figure out how many hours he needs for an assistant position, or what exactly are you looking for?
I guess I really don't know any of this information because we have not heard from him himself, and we don't know exactly what this looks like because we're in the middle of this transition. But there is a lot of financial things that he was currently doing. For example, the accounting supervisor position, which according to Mr. Kalish is a good full-time position right there. So if he's been covering a lot of that, and the idea is that is all going to transition to the county administrator. When we look at what his statutory duties are that are left, and of course we're not talking about an election year, but statutory duties on a regular non-election year, how many hours do we think that is going to require? And then when we looked at the breakdown of deputy clerk hours, and looking at those two numbers together, obviously we still have to have someone that is allocated for deputy clerk. But what I'm saying is how much of the time will literally need to be spent by that person. I would like to have a little more information on that.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I have been inviting Clerk Vlasic to the meetings, and I think Mr. Langrick has invited him to the last weeks as well. So we'll continue to ask for his input.
Yeah, I mean, did that make sense? What I'm asking and why I'm asking that?
I think so. I think I'm understanding what you're asking.
Madam Chair, though, this is an election year. I don't think there is a year that's not. The April election is going to have many requests for school has a big referendum for dollars, and I think Vic mentioned to me there's 4 or 5 referendums being considered. Those are really ticklish in the election process because you have to get right down to what school district does the voter live in, and to make sure he gets the right ballot. So it is an election year. I just want to make that clear.
And superintendent of schools is coming up too.
Yes.
I did not want to downplay that. Okay. And that's another thing, is that I really don't know how many hours on all of the years for any of these elections. How many hours does that take? How many hours does that leave for the other statutory duties? And then how many hours, when we break this down and we're looking at what are the deputy clerk duties here, and putting those things together, because we haven't operated like this before, where we're moving all of these financial things to the county administrator. So I just think that it is a piece of the puzzle that we need to look at before we decide, okay, are we needing to share this position with another office? Do we need to actually create another position because it's going to be that much of a requirement? Or is it something that we can continue to share with one of these positions that we're moving over? And I know that you guys have been trying to get that information. I just think that that's a missing piece of the puzzle here.
So this is Bob. Is there anything holding us up from getting that accounting supervisor position? It's out there. Get it hired, get that training going, and then looking and saying, okay, what are the other responsibilities? Now that that's off the plate and we have somebody doing that, now we can get a good perspective of what is left or what is continuing. That may be 6 months, that may be 5 months, I don't know. But it is a transition period. Is that these duties? I'm looking for feedback why that does or doesn't work.
I mean, the duties aren't changing. They're already being done, and they need to continue to be done. So we have 3 positions currently in our administration that are doing these duties. They're the HR, the payroll and benefits position, the accounting supervisor, and then the accounts payable specialist. So it's already, it's happening. It's just we're moving the pieces from one office to another, essentially.
Correct.
So,
and the clerk Vlasic is currently doing some of the accounting supervisory work. Is that correct? Doing that?
Correct.
So if we had that position filled, we get that, Vic's willing to help train, work with that. We get that position filled, we get them trained. And now we have the opportunity to look and say, what are the other responsibilities? What are the other pieces? What do we need to do for a deputy? We have a better picture of what's left over. I'm just throwing ideas out.
Right.
Pro con,
Okay.
please chop
Right,
them or
okay.
use them.
I mean, I think that's part of why we are waiting to make this decision, because I think that we're going to learn a lot more about what these duties actually are as we now that, so as of today, the two positions are officially under Mr. Langrick's supervision, the accounting supervisor and the accounts, and the payroll and benefits. So that piece has already happened, and we'll start to get a feel for how that's going to shake out. So I think we're already starting to get information as to how this is going to work. So in the next month or two, we will continue to do that. In the meantime, I guess what I'm trying to get from you is, do we want to talk to, who do we want to talk to try to determine if there's a position that could potentially be shared, or if there's a position that could be transferred?
I think my first thought is Tammy's suggestion. We go and look at the office. How's it working? What's going on? I really like that idea of what are we missing by not actually going in and looking at it. I don't know, because I'm not there to look at it. I think that would be a good starting point.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Is it okay if I kind of give you an overview of what it is that we kind of do in the office with the election stuff?
Sure.
Well, with Victor's position, so there's 4 positions currently in the office, and we are all separate from one another, but we work together. So Victor, he literally, I'm not kidding, he works 7 days a week. He is constantly working on election stuff. And with this last year, with the state making the absentee ballots, that turned into a huge monster. In past election years, when an election's done, the clerks bring everything in, it would take us till Friday, generally after the election. We'd have everything entered in, we'd have everything balanced out. All 4 of us are entering data in. This year with the November election, and we never worked overtime, we never worked Saturdays, we got that done with our normal job duties. We shoved aside our normal job duties. We worked Wednesday through Friday. We generally got everything in. We got it all balanced out. And then Vic did what he needed to do with the state to get it all reconciled. With this new system that they've got in place, we worked Saturdays, we worked nights. And honestly, I don't even know if we're done balancing out the November election because of how intense and how much detail has to be entered in for elections now. Amy spent a good deal of her time doing a lot of the deputy duties, gearing up for this election, entering in all the absentee ballot stuff. So in an election year, there is going to be a lot more work that needs to be done with more than just Victor and the deputy. If it's just going to be the county clerk and the deputy, they're not going to meet the deadlines. Vic is already entering in data for the April election. We've got the February one coming up in 2 weeks. He started entering that data in right after the election in November. So, I mean, this takes months ahead of time to prepare for each election, and it takes a lot of time. So when Derek was there, Derek would be like the front person. He would, if people that were running for election, he would run reports of who was in their district. So that way they could send out mailers, that type of stuff. He would answer questions. He would call the state on and finding out the newest stuff. So that way he was kind of the buffer between the clerk and the local clerks. So that way Vic could stay focused on what needed to be done because of all the steps that have to be put in place to get each election ready.
So I have a question. So in speaking with the county administrators from like Iowa County and Calumet County, when I asked them if they provided extra help during elections, they were like, no, like the Calumet County doesn't even have a full-time clerk. And he said, no, that it doesn't require any extra help during elections. So do you have any idea how it could be so different?
With the absentee ballots, the state changed how those are recorded now. So if you request an absentee ballot, your local clerk has to take, okay, Melissa, you requested this absentee ballot, the date you requested it, how you requested it, and then it has to go into a log. That log has to come into the county clerk's office. When the local clerk mails that ballot or gives that ballot, they have to say the date it was given, how it was given, and then that has to come into the clerk. All that stuff, all that data has to be entered into the state system. And when we were entering the stuff into the state system, it's not a simple matter of we bring up Melissa's name and we have a drop-down box for every single one of the data fields that have to be entered. We would bring Melissa up, say you requested an absentee ballot. We would back out of the system because the system would not let us go on to the next step. We'd have to back out, go back into the election, enter the next set of data, and so on and so forth. So it takes quite a bit of time to enter in one absentee ballot request from start to finish. And the thing that we discovered partway through this process is the clerks would email and say, okay, Melissa, I sent her a ballot. And so we're assuming on the date that the email was sent in, that's the date the ballot was sent. Well, we found out once we got the logs, the dates weren't matching up. So the state said you have to make sure that the logs balance to what's in the state system. So then there was this undoing of information. So the state changed this whole process starting, I don't know if it was with the August primary, but it was with the November election. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. This is the first time it took us this long. I mean, every single township had issues. One township took me 3 solid days to reconcile, trying to get every little bit of information balanced out. And there was several of them that way.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful information. Yeah, I don't, because I did talk to those counties, one after the November election and one before, so they would have been dealing with the same issues. So it's a little confusing, to say the least, as to how it can take more time in one county than it does in another. It just seems different. So, all right. Well, does anyone else have any other questions about elections for Tammy? I think that's really helpful to understand how much time
Thanks,
it takes
Tammy.
for those days surrounding before and after an election. All right.
Who else do we talk to, huh?
I mean, I guess what I can do is I can start talking to some of the other departments and have them come to the meeting so that we can have some open discussions with them about the possibilities. And then hopefully we can get Clerk Vlasic to come and talk to us about his needs and what he thinks the ideal situation would be from his perspective, and then go from there. I'm not.
Sounds like a good jumping place, yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have any other proposed future agenda items? Item number 8.
Just as we're going through this, and I was pondering where the county can save money and reallocate it. One of the things I came up with is we have this wonderful committee called the Audit Committee, which to me, once we have a county administrator and that process is going on, to me really is not a committee that's necessary. I don't see any statutory language for it. There's 3 of us there. We go over stuff. There's some good questions, some good things that we challenge. But all right, so it's one meeting. It's how much? It's not saving a lot, but I think just in the efficiency of things, that's something that can be in the future looked at to be corrected and dropped.
Okay. Is there any other future agenda items?
More of a discussion item. It doesn't have to be an agenda item. I'm sorry.
Well, we can't discuss it because it's not on our agenda today, so.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the agenda. I think there was an open section there. My fault.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Yep.
I
Yep.
would, as chair, I would refer that to rules anyway, that question, so.
Oh, right.
Future proposed agenda. I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. I will deal with that with rules. That's my fault.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. So with that, I would like to adjourn. Do we want to try to figure out a date today, or would it be easier if he sent out a doodle poll again?
I would like to do it now if we can.
All right. One second while I pull up my calendar here. So I would like to give us a little bit of time to actually figure out who we might want to bring to the next meeting and talk with those people. So would anyone be objective if we waited until like the week of February 22nd? So I'm pretty, I mean, we have the, I think we have a strategic planning meeting on the evening of the 24th. But otherwise, does anyone have?
Sounds fine.
I was thinking, and I'd like, one thing I will make sure I do at the next meeting is when we start, I'm going to ask people what time they need to leave so that I can make sure that we've covered everything we need to cover for our quorum like we did the last time. So maybe we should shoot, because I know Marty always has to leave. But what time do you have to leave by? Is it by 3, Marty? Is he still here? I think he drives bus at 3, so he has to leave by 3. So I'd like to make sure we don't run up against that again.
Madam, I believe at the last meeting, Supervisor Brewer had to depart around 2:30.
Okay, 2:30. So would anyone, I mean, I guess that week of the 22nd, does anyone want to throw a date? Do you want me to just pick something to start with, or? I currently
Tuesday
have.
the 23rd.
I can do that as long as it's after 12. I have a meeting at 9, but it should be done by 12, so I could be ready at like 12:30. And that would give us 2 hours before Marty has to leave. Anyone? Does that not work for anybody?
That would work for me. I think Marty was trying to say something, but it might have cut out.
Okay, so February 23rd at 12:30 is the next. We are adjourning to. Yeah, we're adjourning to February 23rd at 12:30. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I can second that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We are adjourned till February 23rd. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clint.
You be safe.